good music. Portland Tea Party is the show. It is your favorite show about Portland, the tea, and where the party's at. And boy, have we got a great episode for you today. But today, this morning, let's see, it's June 28th. Everyone is talking about the presidential debate last night. But we're not going to, because remember in episode 1, we talked about our mental health during an election year. And this is one of the biggest election years we've ever been through. Not only is there a presidential election and, of course, a lot of federal offices, but here in Portland, almost the entire government is turning over. There's like one elected that keeps their spot, and that's not even at the city level. So everyone at the city is up for a new role. So many people at the county and metro, and we're talking to so many of them. But behind the scenes, there are people who are keeping things running, and we're going to talk to the one today. But when it comes to the presidential debate, I want you to consider doing what I did, which was to not watch it, because I knew that if anything big happened or anything at all happened, it was all going to be covered ad nauseum this morning. And indeed it was. The second the debate was over, my Instagram feed was full of hot takes and reviews and memes. And of course, this morning I listened to my favorite radio show, The Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC, where I got to hear experts and people calling in with their opinions. Y'all, I'm guessing most people who watch the show are, voting for the same person I'm probably going to vote for. But wow, we've got a tall hill to climb in the next little bit. So remember, just because something's happening in the news doesn't mean you need to immerse yourself in it, right? You don't need a 24-hour news cycle to stay informed. You can just watch Portland Tea Party and just get the things you need to know, which is not necessarily factual and entirely based in my opinions and what I have absorbed in the given week. And that's the truth. All right, let's get into it. Our first guest is an absolute MVP, and you've definitely heard his name before. Here he comes. Michael Jordan, welcome to Portland Tea Party.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You were one of my top guests that I wanted on the show, and I'm just so thrilled. We're halfway through the year of doing this show, and here you are.
Again, really excited. Thanks so much.
Yes. Well, first of all, tell everyone what your job title is, and does it change today versus Monday?
It will change on Monday, yeah. Today is the last working day of the old job, which was the Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Portland, excuse me. And Monday, I will be the acting or interim city administrator for the city.
Wow. And so the transition org chart that I've been talking about so much over all these past episodes, I love these org charts and infographics. It changes not on January 1st, 2025 when the whole city charter changes, but you're actually pre-gaming the change by changing it Monday, July 1st, which is the first day of the new fiscal year. Why?
Well, one word, practice. The mayor felt, and I totally agree, that to not practice this new way of doing business for the city and leaving it until December 31st to hand the keys to a new mayor and a new city council without doing some dry rehearsals, some dry runs, would, I think, my terminology, would have been management malpractice.
Yeah.
And so the mayor, using his authority under the current charter, has taken all of the bureaus back. So he is acting as the commissioner in charge for all the bureaus now. And his intention is to delegate his authority to me, and then I will delegate that authority to the appropriate folks within the organization to run the city. Our intent is to begin to run the city the way it will run next year, hopefully not the way it has run in the past. Presents some interesting complications being kind of in between, but that's the intention.
Yes, and to clarify for our watchers at home who may not spend all the time in the city org chart, taking the bureaus back means that before today, there are 5 commissioners and they each manage a group of bureaus. Now they're just going to focus on being legislators and working on policy and running their campaigns for next year. And the bureaus will fold under the mayor. So it goes the mayor, then you, then a group of deputy city administrators who will focus on service areas of the bureaus. But you say there are some complications. What is an example of something that makes it a little tricky the next 6 months?
Well, as you mentioned, the commissioners will be acting in a legislative role. They've always had that role.
Yes.
But under the current charter, they also have an administrative role to oversee bureaus. And as you mentioned, the mayor has really one big authority in city government, and that is to assign the bureaus. Normally, they're assigned to all the commissioners. He has, for the purpose of practicing this new way, assigned all the bureaus to himself. However, we still are under the old charter, and the council still has all the authority they had as a legislative body before. The commissioners, as you might expect, have been working closely with the bureaus that they oversaw on all kinds of projects and all kinds of things that they thought were important. And so we're going to flip a switch kind of in the midstream. And so the mayor has committed to work with them on those projects. Their habit, however, historically, has been to tell their bureaus what they want done. That won't be the case going forward. So individually, they will have no authority to direct work in the city, as they did before over the bureaus that they were assigned. They will have the authority to tell the executive branch what to do if there are 3 votes for it.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5, a majority. So that will take some getting used to. Because they are very accustomed to calling people in bureaus that they oversee and saying, I'd really like this and this and this to happen, and let's work on this. And that won't be the case going forward. And so that'll take some getting used to. And oh, by the way, probably more getting used to on the staff side of the equation than on the elected side. Because we have 7,000 staff members, and many of them have very close relationships with commissioners' offices and their staffs.
Yes.
And they're very used to working really closely with them and very used to taking direction from them. And so that's going to present some change for both sides of that discussion.
Well, I have some great news for you. From my position of having worked as a consultant and an executive coach with many bureau directors and heads of offices, I don't think they're going to have a big problem with that. I cannot tell you the number of times we've been on a call and they're like, my commissioner's calling me, I got to go.
Yeah.
Or like I go on mute while they handle that.
Right.
And because the DCAs, the deputy city administrators, have some level of expertise, not just in being administrative, but in the service areas they're overseeing. It's a more logical org chart, and I'm saying that, you don't have to say it, but I'm very optimistic about it because the directors I've worked with are so good. They deserve to be empowered and to be able to focus more on managing their bureaus versus too much of managing up or out.
I couldn't agree more. I think the director class at the city spend a lot of time looking up to the electeds, because that's the relationship that has historically been important. They can spend more time looking down into their bureaus, but what I'm hopeful, especially with the deputies that work with them, that we spend more time looking sideways. We spend more time thinking about collaborating with our partners and our peers in other bureaus, and thinking more about how can we optimize the use of the human resource. And we have huge, you said it, huge amounts of talent in the organization. I just am always amazed by the quality of the people that are working within the bureaus on different projects and programs. I hope to unleash them and let them do what they know how to do, and hopefully guide them to being much more collaborative with the talent that is in every bureau.
Yes.
And you've heard me say this before, the problems Portland faces today are more and more becoming big city problems. And they are almost never able to be solved by one bureau alone. And so it takes it takes a village, it takes a lot of folks and their talents and skills to be able to really go after the really complicated problems we deal with. And so I'm just really hopeful that we can unleash that talent and more of the collaborative nature of the city as a whole.
I agree. One of my 11 Portland improvements that I dream for that we talked about in the very first episode is that, let talented people do what they're good at and be in their zone of genius and not be blocked, but also to get rid of the silos that exist in the city or between the different government entities in our area. And, with the service areas already, the bureaus that we work with are thinking about, okay, how can we share technology? How can we share community engagement? And the more that happens throughout the city, the more efficient and effective I think we can be.
Absolutely. We have historically tended to be pretty vertical, and we're kind of all the way up the chain looking up to the commissioner in charge. And that has shaped the culture of the organization over 100 years. So that'll take some time to change. But one of the tenets that I firmly believe in governing and in managing is that you push decision making to the lowest practical place in the organization.
Yes.
And you really encourage people to act at that level that they are experts at and that they're really good at. And when they run into a problem that needs to be resolved somewhere, then they have an option to elevate. But we tend to elevate everything in our organization. It slows us down. We play the game on our heels. And when we do that, problems we see out there on the horizon, we very seldom go out and get them and get rid of them when they're small. We almost always are on our heels and they get to us and they're much bigger and much more complicated and much more difficult to deal with because we didn't go out and get them when they were small.
Why do you think people do that? I mean, my take is that in our culture in Portland that people, well, especially in public service, people want to do things right. They don't want to leave anyone out, like very good motivations. But then, by the time a decision gets made, a decision could have been made and then tested and iterated upon. There's not a lot of room for like fail fast in government.
That's a great observation. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I don't think there's any one reason. One of the things is we're pretty risk averse. I tell people I do new employee orientations, and there's usually 40 or 50 people in the room once a month. And I ask them, how many people came to us from the private sector? And it's usually like half of the people. They raise their hand and I say, so if we hired you to do exactly the same thing you did in the private sector, in the public sector, I'm here to tell you it's a harder job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For a few reasons. But one in particular is when you made a mistake in your former role, it almost never was above the fold in the organization.
Sure, exactly.
When you make a mistake here, it could be above the fold for multiple days in a row. And so the glass in the fishbowl is really clear. And we need to know, and it's true that we're being watched really closely, and rightfully so. The public should watch us very closely. But it makes the job a little tougher, makes us more risk averse, makes us not willing to fail fast and make adjustments. Software implementation in government. Oh my God. I was at the state for Cover Oregon, which was, in case your viewers don't know, one of the worst software implementation debacles in state history. But the reason was we wanted to make it perfect. We didn't want to release it till it was perfect. And well, of course, we tried to make it do too much, and which we're also guilty of quite often. But the notion that the private sector uses all the time, particularly in software development, fail fast, fix it, fail fast, fix it. And then when you fixed it a few times, then you can roll it out. We're not real good at that in the public sector, and we need to get better at it. And a lot of that is being willing to fail, being willing to say you were wrong, being willing to say we'll fix it, and begin to work with the public to modulate the expectations also. And then, so again, multiple reasons that happens.
To oversimplify, I think it all comes back to communications. If you tell people this is the timeline and these 6 months are beta testing and we're going to get your feedback on what's working and what isn't, and then we're going to do version 2, and this is a very tech startup background, but there's a book by Jennifer Polka called Recoding America, which I recommend to everyone I meet who's in government. And she was the one who was brought in to solve the healthcare.gov debacle. Right. And one of the things she points out is, it starts at procurement where, of course, the goal is
I'm bringing back all kinds of horrible memories.
Well, and we're not saying the procurement people at the city are amazing.
Not the city. This was my state experience.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so, the problem is that, like, say we have a scoring system for this group of proposals we get to do software, and the scoring system is like 10 points for your approach to equity, 20 points for your approach to software design, 3 points for, and for who's on the project. And we don't see the big picture because we're focusing on these little things, and we go off the score. And sometimes, none of it is for your experience and what you've actually done and your receipts. And so what I find, we're just starting to dip our toe into like answering RFPs, and I always public records request all the other people who pitched and look at the scoring so I can learn and improve. And often the right person is chosen, but when you're not even able to express yourself as a private sector company in the way that you're used to doing business development, not only does it make it impossible for small businesses to compete because we just don't have the bandwidth, but to reinvent ourselves every time we apply for things. But it's because the people putting out the RFPs the RFPs are so detailed and have the project so prescriptive, there's not room for you to come in and say, actually, if you do it this way instead, you'll get to a better result. So it always ends up being really process focused instead of result focused.
There's no question. And, the people who write those RFPs and build those scoring systems, it's like the people who put the chalk lines on a field that you're going to play a game in. And the people who lay out the field are the ones who usually predict the outcome. And that's exactly what happens for the people who set up scoring regimes, put out the criteria for their RFPs. First of all, we overthink it a lot in the public sector. And by overthinking those things, you remove you remove some of the ability for your proposers to innovate. And then we get the same old answer over and over and over again. And then we wonder why we don't get innovation. Well, we set up the game in such a way that it makes it very difficult to innovate and get the job.
Yeah.
So we got a lot to learn for sure.
Yeah, I love the sport metaphor, of course. If you set up the game and instead of like scoring the most points being the goal, and it's like, well, we want to see how fast you run from the 10-yard line to the 20-yard line, and that's going to be one of the scores. And then, your so
no, it's we can go a long time on
let's back it up
in the public sector.
The last question I hope that I want to ask you, I have 100 questions for you, is talk about what the transition team's been doing, because it's not like you just decided this month what was going to happen. You've been going for a year or more.
We started thinking about this. Well, let me back up. Some of the staff at the city were the support staff for the Charter Commission. So they'd been working for 2 years with the Charter Commission. And so when I came in May of 22, it was about 7 months before the election, we started to prepare for what would it be like if it passed, and started to think about what are all the things we'd have to do, what kind of talent inside the organization, consulting help would we need. We started the RFPs and the procurement processes in advance of the election. We could always cancel them if it failed.
Right.
So we tried to do as much as we could leading up. And then when it did pass, we built a transition team. We had to start a number of things like right out of the gate. I mean, we had to amend the city's election code by April of the next year.
Wow.
So 23. And the reason for that was we needed to let the county know what we expected out of a ranked choice vote election.
Right,
Because
because
they
the
had to
county
redo their
does-
software
Oh my
and get
God.
ready to run
Yeah.
the election. And it was going to take that much lead time for
Wow.
them. So while everybody said, well, you've got 2 years, it's not that big a deal, right? Well, guess what? We had like 4 months with the election code. We had to have the districts lines formed and solidified by August, so that the county again could start to tell people, well, okay, so now we know we sent this ballot to District 1 and that ballot to District 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to know which addresses were in which district. And so all of that had to happen. The one thing that didn't have to happen was not mandated by the charter change, and that was reorganizing city government. There's nowhere in the charter language says reorganize city government, but it does say you need to hire a professional city administrator, and that person is accountable for all of city government. So I'm an old city administrator, emphasis on the old, and I know that we currently are organized currently, before last November, organized kind of like I tell people the Encyclopedia Britannica. 26 volumes, and the only way that they're connected is they're alphabetical.
This metaphor is the bureaus,
yeah,
right?
We've got 26 offices and bureaus in the city.
Oh, wow.
And they all, in the future, if we didn't do anything with it, and we hired the first city, well, even worse than that, we go out to hire the first city administrator, and you're a deputy city manager in Atlanta, and you see the announcement from Portland, and you go, oh my God, Portland, I love Portland, would love to move there.
From Atlanta.
Yeah, well, or maybe, let's say
that's
Houston.
some change management.
Let's say Houston.
Okay.
Anyway, and what's the first thing you do? You go to Portland's website and you look for like an org chart or something, right? And you learn that there are 26 bureaus and offices. They will report directly to you. And so you instantly know, if you've done this for very long, I'm going to have to reorganize the whole city.
Yeah.
Well, people who do that usually get executed because you piss off a number of people.
Right, because you're the new person who comes in.
And eventually you piss off too many,
Uh-huh.
and you get executed. And it doesn't mean you can't do the reorg. You probably get it done, but you don't survive it. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to stick around all that long, so I should do that. And so we've been working on that for a long time now. You ask what the transition team is doing now. We have a huge voter education campaign.
Yeah, now it's time to really go with communications.
We're going to be out all summer, and every community event, every community-based organization meeting, every neighborhood meeting, we'll be there this summer. And also, so there's that. Also, we are preparing to onboard 13 new elected officials, a mayor and 12 councilors. Yeah. So we're preparing for City College,
yes.
Between the election and the first of 2025. We're also doing all of the preparatory work for how will the council operate? Will they have committees? What will that look like? We're doing all of that. We're also preparing for that first recruitment for the city administrator. So we're beginning to do outreach in the community to build to have stakeholders weigh in on what's the successful candidate profile. What kind of person are we looking for in that first city administrator? Yes. So we're going to have all of that work to go along with what I call the second phase of change. For your viewers, the council adopted the kind of big framework for change that we're going to implement next Monday. They adopted that last November, and it really is just a large framework for how to organize city government. But embedded in all those service areas you mentioned are a whole nother set of questions about how do the service areas organize? And then is there a way to look at the enterprise and do some things differently, like communications, say, or something else? So we're going to be working on that kind of second wave of change the rest of this year, and preparing for an entirely new budget process with a council that is just the legislative branch, a mayor that is the executive and will have to propose a budget, and the council will receive that budget while metaphorically they're still looking for the bathrooms. Yeah. They're going to be brand new, yeah, and they're going to be trying to figure out, all 12 of them, how they're going to work together as a group and be effective. And during all that time, we will hand them a whole new budget to be adopted by June 30 next year. And we will incorporate kind of that next wave of change in that proposal. So a lot of things going on with transition team. I have to say this, I've been involved in a lot of big, complicated things in 40 years of doing this. This is the biggest and the most complicated, and it's the one that has been done the best. We've hit every deadline. We produced every product that needed to be produced to make sure the election runs well, to make sure we're ready for a council and a mayor that come in January 2025. And like the mayor agreeing to start operating the city 6 months in advance, that's just absolutely essential for us to hand the keys off in the most positive way we can for that new administration so they can be successful. And so I'm so proud of the team. They've just done amazing work.
Receipts. We love receipts for success in government. And I want to clarify, you said you're not going to be the new city administrator. You are opening it up for someone new to come in with a fresh take.
Well, let me be clear. It will be up to the mayor.
Okay.
We will prepare. My advice to the mayor-elect in November this year, after they're elected, will be the most important decision you make in your first term will be to hire the city's first city administrator.
Yes.
And so you should run the most robust recruitment maybe we've ever seen. I think all the stakeholders in the city that care about city government should have their fingerprints on that process somehow. That will set up whoever you hire to have the best chance to be successful when they show up. And I will not be an applicant. As I said, this is my 40th year in public life, and my wife wants to travel, and believe it or not, she'd like me to go with her. If I could be helpful in some way for the next administration in a part-time capacity, I'd be happy to talk about doing that. But this is going to take someone with experience, someone maybe a little more energetic than me, that has the stamina to do this, because it will be an incredibly difficult job in many ways. Everybody in the city will want a piece of this person. They'll want to know them. They'll want to understand what they're thinking. And then you've got 7,000 people to manage and make sure that they can be successful, and a new council that doesn't get to tinker around with the day-to-day, but make policy and can pass resolutions and ordinances and can actually direct you what to do. So this person's job will be down in the organization, out into community, and up to a council and a mayor, and make sure they work together. And so it's an incredibly challenging high wire act.
I can't wait to see who it's going to be. Definitely the first round draft pick, if you will.
Absolutely.
All right. I know we've already talked about a lot, but we stay a few minutes for tea.
Sure.
All right, great. When we come back, tea with Michael Jordan.
I have these are wonderful.
Well, thank you.
All right, we're getting cough drops airdropped in because everybody's got allergies and coughs and things. All right, tea time. We got to get some hot gossip from you. So first of all, 40 years in public leadership. I got to see you do a panel with other city administrators from other cities, and one thing, and it was a part of an initiative to educate the city council candidates and start getting them thinking about what the job actually entails, because I'll tell you what, a lot of them don't know. So what is you gave some great advice of the attitude and the mindset and the characteristics that people are going to need to enter this new Portland as elected officials. What are some of those tips?
Sure. This cohort of city councilors, the city, as we know, has run in a certain way. For not only does that affect the culture inside city government, but it affects the way the community thinks about city government and the way they think about the elected official. So, some of which will have never been elected with a certain thinking that what you get to do you as an elected official, you get to direct what's going on, right? And you absolutely an individual city councilor. It is now a legend, 12 members. The magic number is 7. And I guarantee you there will be maybe myself as interim and certainly the new city administrators when they will get to meet with an individual city councilor and tell them, you have no power on your own. You cannot direct work. So go get 6 more votes and we will do anything you tell us. But we can't be responsive to 12 individuals. We'll be going, it'll be chaos. And so, so the number one characteristic, learn how to work with your peers. Understand that this is a team game, not an individual game. You are an individual legislator. Your ideas are important, but to implement them is a team game. And so you need to work well with your colleagues. The other thing is, this charter amendment tends to make people think about the separation of the branches, the legislative branch and the executive branch. We talk a lot about that, and I think it leaves people with the impression that they're separated. And in some ways they are. But for this city council and the mayor, new mayor, to truly be successful, they have to work together. They have to be driven together to do things together. So the counselor team game, you got to understand that and bring your ideas and your thoughts and your constituents' concerns to the table. But you have to understand it's a game of compromise and discussion. For the mayor, it is going to be who is the elected executive in charge of day-to-day operations. You need to learn to stay in your lane. You're going to have to hire a professional city administrator. Charter says everybody reports to that person. Mayor, you're accountable as the executive, but you do not run the day-to-day. You have an administrator to do that. The late Commissioner Nick Fish was fond of telling me that the one thing he had learned as an elected official was how to stay in his lane. And when I worked with him at Environmental Services, it was just a pleasure to work with somebody who was a peer and a partner, but we knew which job we had. And it was just, it works so well when people know that. And the mayor has to be engaging with the council. One of my little hopes is that the mayor and the council right out of the gate agree to sponsor a strategic plan for Portland together. And the city has never had a strategic plan. We've got multiple bureau strategic plans, but we do not have a citywide strategic plan. If we can do that, first of all, if you can do that together, it gives them both ownership in the future of the city. And they agree on what's important. It will make budgeting so much easier if we have a document that says, okay, we've all said this is important. And it will free us from something that is killing us today. And it is the tyranny of the now. Yeah. Everything that walks through the door is just as important as anything else you're doing because we have no plan. Yeah. We have no way to set the priority. And so everything that comes through the door is important. And we struggle with that. And so I would love it if they work together. And not only that, it would help them come together and be partners in governing. And they have to be for the city, for sure. But I will tell you, if they go apart, whoever the city administrator is in deep trouble. Because you're accountable to both bodies. Right. And if they're not working together, it makes that job infinitely more difficult.
I could talk about strategic planning all day,
I know you could.
Let's stay in the T zone.
Sure.
So, 40 years of public service. Mm-hmm. What's a lesson you've learned, maybe even the hard way, but how have you evolved as a person through that?
Well, 2 things. One, personal. I was fortunate, I guess you'd say, for my career to have children in my house for most of my career. And, kids don't care what you did all day. When you hit the door at home at night, it's about them, whether it's homework or it's taking them to practice or whatever it is. And it helps you keep your balance. Yeah. This work, and I'll admit I swallowed the hook a long time ago, and I'm an addict. This work will suck every minute of every day, 365 out of you if you let it. And you'll always be doing something you think is incredibly important. And so it's pretty hard to do it for 40 years with that happening. And so you've got to have balance. So I tell people all the time, it's great work, it's important work, you're going to love it, but find something else. Friends, family, hobbies, whatever, have something else to keep your balance. And then the other thing I've learned professionally is that the work is never about you. It's always about the community first. But most importantly, I think for a manager or leader in public organizations, trying to change them, you can do it really one of two big ways. When you're in a job like mine, you can issue memos from your office, and people will do them kind of half-assed until you're gone.
Yeah.
Right? And this is not a slam on city employees or anybody else, and it's true in big corporations too. Employees have "we be" written on their forehead. We be here when you be gone. And so they'll wait you out. And nobody ever says no. Nobody ever says no to you. It just won't happen. And so the way to change big organizations is to engage them. Big organizations only experience sustainable change when they come to the realization that they must change themselves. And so you have to engage the people who are involved. And they have to feel like they own the change to some degree, or it's just never going to be sustainable. And so your job as leader is really convening, and it's really about facilitating, and sometimes it's about running it, for some of your older viewers, an EST session, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to leave to pee until we get an answer.
No, I have done that. No, I still have, no.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
But you can't let people slip the punch.
Yeah.
You can't let them run away and hide from a tough decision. So you got to keep them together until they can come to a decision. And so I think that philosophy of how you get sustainable change is probably the biggest thing I've learned over my time.
So you talked about balance.
Yeah.
What do you do outside of work? Like, what are your hobbies that people may not know about?
First of all, I have 4 kids and 6 grandkids.
Okay.
So tonight I've got a basketball game to go to. All weekend there are 2 basketball tournaments, so I can go all weekend to watch kids play basketball. So that's incredibly fun. My lovely and talented bride CJ, who by the way has the A resume in the family, I have the B resume, is planning lots of travel, and we tend to love road trips. We're road warriors.
Yeah.
My favorite little road trip is the road from Brookings to Sonoma.
Yes, same.
Oh my God!
Oh my goodness!
Down through Arcata and
Yes.
up is it the E or the L River?
Oh yeah.
Up the river.
We have a
canyon.
studio audience today.
Yes, up the canyon, and then of course you end up in wine country, which is where I would love to end up any day of the week. And it's just so beautiful. I love to get up at dark 30 and grab a coffee and hit the road. And in that kind of quietish time when the sun's just coming up and everything seems still and quiet, there's nothing better. Nothing better.
What's on the speakers for your road trip? What are you listening to?
Oh, that's the other thing about the lovely and talented CJ. She is an audiophile.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got music, and she curates stuff. And of course, we're children of the 70s. And so a lot of R&B, a lot of, old rock and roll, and a mix, just an eclectic mix of stuff from that period mostly, but you never know what's going to come out of the. Now it's the pod or the phone. Used to be she would sit on Saturday mornings. We had some of the first disc recorders that ever came out, and she would sit in the corner, and I'd say, "What are you doing over there?" She said, "It's my knitting." And she'd be making discs for
knitting music together.
Knitting music.
She could be a DJ.
She did.
CJ
she did do a little.
Oh,
that's her call sign on Instagram or whatever she's.
That's amazing.
I'm not a
Social media?
social media.
Yeah,
person.
that's safer. All right, let's do a speed round.
Okay.
Okay. If you could have done any other career than public service, what would it have been?
I'd pitch for the Dodgers.
Okay. Who is your favorite city employee?
All of them.
I knew you'd say
I
that.
love all my jobs.
All right. Who do you hate the most in Portland?
Oh my God, I don't hate anybody.
I knew you would say that
I
too.
really don't.
All right.
I really don't.
Favorite donut place?
It can be Cuts Forest Thriftway Bakery.
Oh, thanks for the tip.
I live in Canby. I've lived there my entire life.
Yeah.
And there's a little store that used to be part of a Thriftway chain, but now it's just Cuts Forest. And they have the best bakery, I think, in Oregon.
Okay, I'm going there. First concert?
Beach Boys.
Beach Boys,
Yeah.
where?
In McCourt.
Awesome. And favorite vacation spot other than wine country?
Wow, that's a tough one. Love so many. Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't even really exist the way I knew it anymore because of drought, but Crescent Lake Lodge.
Oh, yes.
We went there for like 22 straight years. My youngest couldn't walk the first year we went, and we went every summer with a whole tribe of friends, and it was just absolutely amazing. It used to be the last place that the Central Oregon Irrigation District got water from. And now
You know the facts
and
behind
now,
these
and now
places.
it's the first place.
Wow.
And so they drain the lake of its top 15 feet immediately in the spring. And the water's so low and the beaches aren't there anymore.
It's not the same.
But we just had a ball there. I loved it there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I want to say to you is that before I met you, everyone that I mentioned, oh, Michael Jordan, and, they adore you. The people who work for you and directly with you at the city, I've never heard anything negative. There's so much trust. People really look up to you as a mentor and as a leader. And I know they don't always tell you directly because it might seem like brown nosing or something, but I will tell you as somebody who's heard it behind the scenes from a lot of really remarkable leaders in their own right that you're very appreciated and loved.
Well, that's so sweet. I'm, again, addicted to the work. And the best thing about it is the people. The best thing. Absolutely the best. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you for coming
so
today and for all of your time.
It's so fun. I'll do this anytime. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I have one more thing to tell the people, and that's where the party's at coming up. So give me just one moment.
Okay.
All right, well, it is the 4th of July coming up, so there's so much to do, but I just want to tell you, do not be setting fireworks off. The dogs are going to go crazy. And hello, we're supposed to be honoring veterans, and things that sound like gunfire, probably not the best way to honor veterans. This seems obvious. So no fireworks, barbecues, okay. Friends and family, okay. All right, this weekend, Formula E racing in Portland. Yes, I'm going Sunday. You want to check it out. There's a whole fan village, experience village. You got to do that. Are you going?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. And then do not miss the play Clyde's at Portland Center Stage. I saw it. It knocked me off my feet. It's a play by Lynn Nottage, the legend, and it is a beautiful show. It's only running tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. So see if there are tickets left and go see Clyde's at Portland Center Stage. And I want you to save the date for the most exciting event of the entire summer, which is a free screening in the Summer Free for All series by Portland Parks and Rec. It is a screening of NEWSIES on July 12th at Overlook Park, my very favorite movie. And I told Street Roots, you need to do a benefit screening of NEWSIES because Street Roots are our own NEWSIES. And they made it happen. So we are doing July 12th screening of NEWSIES to benefit Street Roots. And that day we will, of course, do our episode from Street Roots as well. All right, players, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And we are going to the weekend. See you next time.